Imagine or there is a situation when you go for the landscape photography and you have a particular scene where there's a lot going on in front of you, or the scene is very chaotic. In that particular time, what lens would you like to use? And in this video I'm going to talk 4 reasons why I'll use the telephoto zoom lens and why every landscape photographer needs this telephoto zoom lens. And this 4 reasons is particularly subjective to me, and anybody can disagree with those one of those reasons or maybe all of those reasons, and every photographer has their own opinion and they may disagree, and that's absolutely fine. So my 4th reason is lack of foreground interest. When you have absolutely zero foreground interest and your area of interest is located maybe in the midground or in the background areas, in that particular situation what you do is you can eliminate the foreground area by zooming in the lens, and you can focus on the midground or in the background areas where your subject is located, and you can frame the image accordingly what is available in the midground or in the background areas. This is an example where there is absolutely no foreground interest in this image, and what I did is I took out my zoom lens and I did focus on this midground as well as in the background areas of this image, and I came out with this particular image where I have taken the interest on the midground as well as in the background hills. So I have came out with this particular image, which is far better than what would I have taken with the wide angle lens. So the third reason being reaching the subject of interest. So when your subject of interest is located miles away from you, what you can do is you can take the advantage of this zoom lens. You can zoom in the lens, you can bring the subject of interest much closer to you and frame the image no matter where you stand. Maybe there's some obstacles in front of you, maybe some bushes, some rocks, some swamps in front of you. It can't stop you taking those images which is situated miles away from you. And this is an example. In this particular scene there are plenty of waterfalls next to each other, and what I did in particular scene is I did focus on this particular waterfall and I zoom in on that particular waterfall and I capture this image. And another image I capture is this waterfall here, which I focus is on this particular area. So these 2 images I took by zooming in are really closer to the waterfall, and accordingly I have framed the image, so it really helps to reach the subject of interest, and accordingly you can frame the image. So this is another example where in this particular scene I have focused on a single tree, most probably on this area when the sunlight was hitting on this area. So I have came out with this image. So when the light was hitting on this twin tree and when the mist was rising, when the sunlight was hitting on this lake, I have taken this image. And with this telephoto zoom lens I could really emphasize the area of interest while zooming on this particular scene. And my second reason is changing the perspective of the image, and it is related to the third point I have discussed earlier. So again, when you zoom in the lens, it brings the subject much closer to you. That is, it brings the midground and the background areas much closer to you, and it gives the sense of compression as if the 2 midground and the background layers are very close to each other than what we see in the reality. So it really changed the perspective of the image than what we see in the reality. So this is an example of the changing the perspective of the landscape when you are shooting with the wide angle lens and the zoom lens. So here is the image I have taken with the wide angle lens, maybe around 24 mm lens, and you can make out the separation between this foreground, midground and the background mountain. At least you can make out some of the distance between these 3 layers of the foreground, midground and the background layers. And when I have taken with the zoom in lens and focusing on some of the top of the mountain areas, maybe on these areas, so I have came out with this image. So here we can see the foreground, midground and the background areas are really compressed to each other, and these three layers are very close to each other, where in reality they are not. So I came with another images, the same location, where this is the foreground, midground and the background, where they looks very close to each other, where in reality they are not. So this how you can create or change the perspective of the landscape by using the telephoto zoom lens. So my first reason why I want to choose the telephoto zoom lens is eliminating the distractions. When there is a chaos in the scene in front of you, when you go out for the landscape photography, there's a lot going on in front of you, so many distractions in the scene. What you can do is you can take the advantage of the zoom lens. You can really focus on the particular area of interest in the scene, and you can eliminate the distractions surrounding that particular area of interest, and you can focus on the textures, lines, patterns, silhouettes, layers, the light hitting on the top of the mountain, the hills, on the top of the trees, and you really emphasize your subject of interest, and you can really eliminate the distractions surrounding those subject of interest. So here is an example where in this particular scene there is a little bit chaos in this area, where there is a lack of this foreground interest, and so many layers and clouds in between these hills. What I did is I took out my zoom lens and focus on this particular area of this tree. I came out with this particular image where I could eliminate those distractions, so I could really emphasize these trees and the surrounding environment. I wanted to create the image. I also came out with some other images. This image I have eliminated the sky as well as other distracting elements surrounding this particular area, and I focus on the light hitting on this particular rolling hills, and I could make this image and really emphasize this particular area of this chaotic scene. And lastly, I want to add the differentiating feature between the wide angle lens and the telephoto zoom lens is the wide angle lens is important in including all the important subjects present in the foreground, midground and the background layers, where you want to include all the subject of interest in a single frame. Whereas the telephoto zoom lens, where there is a chaos or lots going on and there is so many distractions in a particular scene, in that case you can use this telephoto zoom lens and you can focus on your particular subject of interest, eliminating all the distractions surrounding that particular area, and you can really emphasize that particular subject of interest in your image. So that is the important differentiating features between the wide angle lens, where the wide angle lens is used to include all the subject of interest in a single frame, whereas your telephoto zoom lens is to eliminate all the distractions surrounding that particular area of interest. I use this telephoto zoom lens from the very beginning of my photography, and I use this Sigma 100 to 400 mm lens, and this lens is available in the market in half of the price of the first party lens available for the particular cameras. And this lens is absolutely fantastic lens, and it does an amazing job what first party lens can do. And I love this lens, and I've been using this lens for the past 6 months, and I'm getting the amazing results from this lens. Hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to hit like and the subscribe button. See you next time. Bye from now.